So I think you'll remember we had a look at some of the current causes. Social media, the overuse of social media and screens, the COVID-19 pandemic and how that affected our mental health, the financial crises going on around the world and financial instability, the overdiagnosis debate, and eco-anxiety. And we're going to focus on just 3 today. And as I've highlighted at the top there, in order to be able to answer the question of whether we can fix the problem of the epidemic, we need to really understand the potential causes that are affecting particularly young people. And I've picked out these 3 because I think these are causes that are particularly affecting young people. Social media obviously being one, the pandemic, and the overdiagnosis debate, which we'll explain later on. So let's start with the pandemic. So it's very common knowledge that during COVID-19, the global youth population faced heightened mental health challenges, and this has been shown by a lot of research. So a large meta-analyses showed that rates of depression and anxiety essentially doubled during the pandemic. So they went up by 25.2% for depression and 20.5% for anxiety. And this was higher among girls and older adolescents. And research has also shown that the impact on mental health among young people from the pandemic has continued after the pandemic. So even the first 15 months after lockdown, young people were showing more stress, depression, even suicidal ideation and traumatic stress disorder. And the study also showed that there were some higher risk individuals. So those with financial difficulties, chronic conditions, previous mental illnesses, or those experiencing COVID physical effects, or even other effects of COVID like social isolation. So let's go into a deep dive of a study related to COVID. The CoSpace study done by Cresswell and White, which I would highly recommend you read, really examined how youth mental health and anxiety and depression was impacted by the pandemic, and it utilised monthly surveys to do this. And they found that the results varied by age, but it found that primary school age children, so young children, showed increased restlessness, hyperactivity, behavioural difficulties, whilst secondary school children showed increase in restlessness and attentional issues and a decrease in emotional difficulties. So you can see that obviously the pandemic in this study, there was evidence for the impacts on mental health affecting different age groups differently, which I think is important to bear in mind. However, it's worth evaluating that with this study, there wasn't a particularly representative sample. So although there was 7,500 families studied, the respondents, or those participating in the study, were mostly female. And there was a lack of representation from lower income participants, particularly in terms of pre-COVID data. So just a reminder, it's really important when you're discussing a study to evaluate it and look for its limitations, but we'll come on to that in a later video.